That is that.
You can rejoin once. Yeah, I'm already going live now. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, who have joined us on this Dr. Fundi channel via multiple social media platforms, via Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and also the Dr. Fundi website. Welcome. We have another interesting profile interview in prospect. We hope you are going to be empowered. We hope you are going to be inspired. We are at the tail end of our series, which we call The Future is Female. Since the 1st of August, we have been profiling various, women of South Africa who are doing great things in their chosen professions or chosen, careers. Today we have another powerhouse lady. Dr. Lulu Gwagwa, right? Dr. Lulu Gwagwa. Her full name is Nolulamo, which means humility. Nobambiswano, which means collaboration. So, in the African culture, when people, when your parents give you a name, there's normally a reason behind you getting that name, either something that happened around the pregnancy or delivery, or something that they aspire that you become, when you get to be somebody who is at a point of making a difference to society. So I'm sure both of these names, Nolulamo and Nobambiswano, have got that meaning. It was, what I think the parents were hoping that Dr. Lulu will become when she is older. And indeed, as you will hear on the profile that I'm going to read about her, she is that and more. So I'm just going to take 2 minutes of your time to just read the profile. I took this one from LinkedIn. Dr. Lulu Gwagwa is a multifaceted woman, an accomplished development planner, an academic, a business leader, an executive coach, a philanthropist. All right? Somebody who's got passion about the development and growth of young women. She's currently the CEO of Lereco Investments. She serves as the non-executive chairperson of Zutari South Africa, non-executive director of Massmart and Afrox, a trustee of the First Rand Empowerment Foundation. She was appointed in 1993, before the New South Africa, a year before the New South Africa, to be in the team that came up. There were 12 commissioners who had to sit down and actually carve South Africa into 9 provinces. All right? So she's one of those 12 people. So if anybody has got any issue about the boundaries of Mpumalanga and Limpopo or somewhere in the Eastern Cape, well, she's one of the people who needs to answer as to how did they come to this decision that, this part of, Bushbuck Ridge must fall into Mpumalanga or vice versa, Yeah, so anyway, so that's a little bit about Usis Lulu. So she was in that committee of 12 commissioners that delineated and demarcated the current boundaries of the 9 provinces. She's long been a woman whose work has got a lasting impact. Reading, some of the stuff that's written about her, one thing that is very clear is that whatever that Mrs. Lulu puts her mind in, she focuses and makes sure that there is an impact. Not just, impacted lasting impact. And in 1995, she served as an appointee of the Commission on Provincial Government and also as a deputy chair of the Ministerial Advisory Committee on Local Government Transformation. And in 2014, she was appointed the Deputy Chair of the Eastern Cape Planning Commission to develop the Eastern Cape Development Plan. I'm interested to hear about that one because my home province, I'm not sure, man, if things are happening the way they should. It would be nice to know what's happening there in terms of the development plan. But from an education point of view, she did her high school at a very famous school those days called Fundi High School, in Pondoland in the Eastern Cape. Then she went to Forte, where she obtained her Bachelor of Arts degree. And then from there, she went to University of Natal, where she got a master's in town and regional planning. And beyond that, she went and got a MSc from the London School of Economics, and she got it cum laude. And then she went and studied again and got an MPhil, and also she got a PhD from UCL. She is very big on policy matters. She writes a lot of, policy papers. She has published a lot on matters of gender, housing, and development management. She was actually a finalist of the Nedbank Business Woman of the Year Awards, was also one of 8 future shapers, according to the 2018 Marie Claire, that's one of the magazines, and is also a fellow of the Africa Leadership Initiative. So, like I've said, she's very passionate about development. She's also founded Magazi Trust, which empowers young people of Mzimkulu. We're going to talk about that one as well. And also Lotus, I don't know how to spell this or to pronounce this one. Unalome, I don't know how to pronounce that one. You'll correct Mrs. Lulu on that one. But it's a year-long coaching program for young African women. She's a keen reader, reviews books, especially those by African women writers, and is also an aspiring photographer. So that's a lot of things that Mrs. Lulu has done. So when you have somebody like her, a powerhouse like her, you don't even know where to start, as a host to do an interview with her. But anyway, Sis Lulu, welcome to the Dr. Fundi channel. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, Fundile. I normally call you on social media, Mninawa. So, and you are indeed Mninawa. So, good afternoon on this lovely Sunday afternoon, and also a good afternoon to your followers.
Thank you very much, Sis Lulu. Thank you for agreeing to be our special guest on this Women's Month. As we are celebrating women in South Africa, especially those women who are movers and shakers, those who are doing great things, to take us to the South Africa that we dream about, because I don't think we are yet at that point at this moment. Now, I normally start with where the person comes from, because most people will know Dr. Lulu Gwagwa, but they don't really know what kind of family Abuya Guyo. Is she a firstborn, lastborn, middle child? Because those positions, they also shape one's character and personality. So we're gonna start there. I know that originally we are a Chromebook, all right, Mzimkulu, and now you stay a Machaliti, Mzimkulu. Just tell us a little bit, about where you were born, a little bit about your family, how big is your family and your position in terms of siblings within the family.
Okay, that's a very important one, because I'm always very proud. Even if you hadn't asked me, I was going to definitely mention that, because Ekrumuku kubalulekile mfundini. You don't just come from Ekrumuku and Mzimkulu and that doesn't matter. So ndisuka Ekrumuku ezilalini and Mzimkulu. Gwagwa, ifamily ya Gwagwa, amachutama, a very, very big family. If you say usuka Gwagwa, it doesn't matter ukuba ndidibana nawe uphi. Ingaba yakho isuka eKrumuku, it can't be from anywhere else except from eKrumuku. So ndisuka eKrumuku, I am the firstborn, born to a middle son. My father was the middle. kowabo 3 sons and three daughters, and so I'm the firstborn of 6 siblings, 5 daughters, firstborn, and a son right at the end. And but in terms of ukuba ngumuntu omnyama napha kula family endikhulele kuyo, I'm called deputy Nkosazana. And that's why I mentioned ukuthi my father is a middle son, because I can't be Nkosazana when my father is middle. So kwatatomdala wami had 7 children, and the firstborn is a daughter, usisithobile. So nanso ke Nkosazana yala family yakuthi. So ekhaya I'm called the middle deputy Nkosazana. Now a deputy is a very important person, because you get delegated to do the job, you know, of leading. So I'm that person who deputizes. And you asked about the name, Unobambiswano. Ekhaya, I'm called Unobambiswano, and that name came from my father. And apparently the fathers, the 3 sons, sat together and decided on this name, and it was all about unity in the family. It was all about bringing the family together. I come from a close-knit family, huge family, but close-knit. So my role as that Deputy Nkosazana is to actually be the glue in that whole family of 13 siblings. So we are 13 siblings, Ekaya. So this idea of firstborn of 6, that is theoretical, or it is at least in terms of the Western culture. In terms of family, I'm one of the 10 daughters, and I'm one of the 13 siblings, and I play a very important role of kind of being the glue to the family on a basis of a delegated responsibility and mandate.
Wow, okay.
And then we grew up, Fundile being a lot. When we grew up, although we're 13, we're actually 25 in the family, which is the extended family. My Utatom Dalawam and my father were school principals, Utatom Wali Polisa. So these 2 who were teachers, you will know this. Wherever Apoba teacher corner, they would bring the children that had a potential that needed to be groomed. So in the end, we ended up being that whole lot. The Kule and Lala, and we were divided according to age and generation and age and gender. So nibe chose nina nika amanzi, nina niyacanda, nina niyapheka, nina nenza le into. And then naxa sekulalwa nilala like that. So you would sleep as a group. Kula matrasi wenu niyavundla because you can't sleep straight. And then sanisitya nikela kula kwesaskoti le esikhulu, you know, musho wenu. Exactly. Inyama yako, inyama yako, inyama yako. So that was my jolly family, very loving family, very big on education, very big on ethics and integrity, and very big on hard work, and very big on unity and collaboration, very big on giving. So these are the things that I grew up knowing as normal things that you do as a human being.
Because I think my next question was exactly going to be that, to say in that environment, you know, nuclear and extended. Actually, I think the bigger influence was more the extended one, because, you know, those days, like you just said now, cousins, out is the cousins, go brother Bako, go sister Bako. And we don't have first cousin and all of those kind of things. So I was going to ask you, Guti, what values and principles, you know, as I instilled while so Chilo, but education was a big thing. Obviously, your dad and the other uncle, Babezi Tishala, and the other uncle, Ebeli Polisa. So that one, you had no choice when it came to it about education and the giving part, you know, just what you said now, Uguti, they would bring kids with potential from wherever that they were teaching, and they would sort of adopt them, you know, Baba Kulise, and make sure that, you know, they get to realize the potential. That's about giving. You know, so again, you have no choice. So now I can see the link between what you are doing with the young women today in terms of, you know, coaching them, mentoring them, and trying to make sure that, you know, after that 1-year program, they actually become, you know, better people who are better at you know, making a difference to society. So education, giving, you just mentioned a few other ones.
I said education was big, and ethics and integrity was a very big one. My father in particular was very big on that. Giving was a very important thing. Unity and collaboration and hard work were also very big one. My father was a very busy bee. My father, I don't think he knew how to sit down, but that had a lot to do with his mother, with how he was brought up by his mother, who got widowed very early on in life. So he was always busy, and he didn't understand why people could actually sit down. So you were either, if you weren't working, you were playing outside, and it had to be physical, playing niyaleqa phandle niyathini. But this idea of just sitting down was something that I didn't grow up seeing anybody sitting down at home.
Well, you know, as I was preparing for this, you know, conversation, I spoke to a few people who know you a lot. And one of the things that was said was that, Joe, Lulu, actually, he busy bee. In fact, a psychiatrist, hey, ADD until you know, even when it comes to, you know, acquiring knowledge, you are always acquiring new things. I mean, there's a master's degree that you've just got recently, you know, so, and there's another program that you've just, you know, enrolled. So as we are talking about your dad, I'm actually reflecting on what I've been told about you already. So
yeah, no. Yeah, most definitely. Ekaya were very busy, and we still are very busy.
Beautiful. So, so if you look now at the villages of besides now the extended family and the family, what do you say are the things that also have shaped how you see the world just now in the environment of that is Ilali Asia?
The big one Ekrumuku was Ekrumuku had these kind of, and Nasemzimkul, there are these big families.
Yes.
KwaMjoli, KwaChonco, KwaMcetshwa, KwaMahlawe. So there are these big families, and the thing about it was always this thing again, yokuthi utata uMjoli owayengumhloli utata wami lo 100%, akho ukuthi utata kaNonhlanhla. No, he can reprimand me at any point in time. And so we had this idea that we grew up knowing that wherever you are representing a family. And the family is not Gwagwa, Leyam, as I said, no, even the extended family. You are representing the community at large. KwaChonco, I mean, I remember Sibuya Forte, strike here, and Utata Chonco came ekhaya as a visitor Utata, they were very close. And then he's talking about, Haibo, wenzani lola isikolo mzali wesikoleni hayi kustrike he was almost leaping out of his chair to almost come and almost like do something about, so if ukustrike wesikoleni wena ufunani la. Now this, he's not even my father is sitting there trying to explain ukuthi ndibuyile esikoleni. So Mr. Chonco, Utata Chonco is already thinking he has a responsibility to try already punish me about why am I must now answer why am I here. And so that was that's what I knew, is that you're accountable to the bigger community wherever you are. It's not about you, whatever you're doing, it's about what you were taught. How does it represent the values broadly, the broader family, as I said. So that's the thing that for me still stands out. And see again the issue of education. Still very big in the community where I grew up.
And Laduba, any of those parents can instill discipline. And after they take you home and you even get more punishment if you were doing something like this.
Exactly.
So that thing, Oguti, it takes a village. They actually took it literally. And I mean, from what you've just said now, you are a product of not only your own family and extended family, but also the influential people in the community that you come from. Which is why I think it's important so that if there are kids who are there, they look at Lulu, they know that, she was molded by, this community, and she's very proud of the community, Abu Yakuyo, All right.
Absolutely.
When you were growing up, and let's say under the age of 10, what did you want to be, Sis Lulu?
Oh, it was very clear. I was going to be a medical doctor. That was just always very clear. And the reason why I was going to be a medical doctor is because when I grew up, my mother was very sickly. And for as long as I remember, my mother was very sickly. And when we took my mother to Okanye, my mother was admitted in hospital, a Wentworth hospital at the time. Yes. And of course, I didn't know then. Yes, I didn't know then, but now I got to know because he was a cardiac patient. So I say Wentworth most of the time. So what we would go visiting my mother as Bethlehem, and we would hear the loudspeaker which was, we called it the loudspeaker, but it was the intercom. Yeah. So it would be saying, now I will tell you what I heard. I'm sure that was not what was said. It would say, Dr. Koronoskot, outside call, please. And I always thought, oh my goodness, this is so nice. Can you imagine Dr. Gwagwa, outside call, please? So that was the reason why I wanted to be a doctor, is that I grew up with my mother who was ill, and I was going to hear my name in the loudspeaker. So that was very clear. That's what was going to happen.
And indeed, you became a doctor, the real doctor, not a medical doctor, but a real doctor. I normally tease my colleagues and say, we are doctors with bachelor qualifications, a Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery. And I normally then say, the ones who've got a PhD are actually the real doctors. But anyway, so you ended up being a doctor. So we are now calling you Dr. Lulu Gwagwa, and you are solving bigger problems than individual health problems. But anyway, so you grew up wanting to be a doctor, a medical doctor. But let's just come back to Mom, because I know that your mom had a great influence in you growing up. Can you tell us a little bit about your mom's influences in you shaping the person you are today?
As I say, Fundi, when I grew up, my mom was very sickly. Yes. But my mom was a very pleasant person. Beautiful woman, was very pleasant, and who was really the anchor of our family. My mother married very young, and I'm glad I didn't take that after her, because I married much, certainly almost 10 years older than her. Yeah. She married very young, and the second thing that she did, which I'm also glad I didn't take after her, is that she sacrificed her own career, if I can call it that, because she ended up being a housewife. And my father, as I say, was a school principal. Yeah. But what I knew about my mother, and which she made sure that everybody understood very clearly, is that she was very intelligent. And she would show you her certificates, her first class certificates, in standard 6, in matric, in whatever. Yeah. And so she always says, whatever brains we have, they're definitely not from my dad, they're from her. And my uncle, the late Bishop Mgojo, that's Mgojo's, Nosipho Mgojo's father, would also make sure that it's known that no, labantwana bakamfana who are clever, It's not their father. Bafuze kulo nina emabongweni. So that's something that we were told over and over again. I don't know if that's true, but be as that may be, my mother certainly was that person who was very intelligent, but also very busy, very entrepreneurial. Although my mother didn't go to tertiary, she was extremely busy. She was doing one thing or another. If it wasn't pressless, at some point she ended up being behind our backs. She became a counselor, Mzimkulu, and we were like, oh my God, how did that happen? We didn't even know, we didn't see that one coming.
When I
I suspect so because they were friends. So she became a community leader and a community builder, and was very active in the Methodist Church. So a very, very, very entrepreneurial, very busy, very broad-minded person, and
well, maybe Utatumkojo had a point there about where those genes came from, because some of the literature about intelligence, it seems to put a lot of weight on the genes from the mothers. Not that it discounts the contribution your data, but on the X gene, which is what you get from your mother, and your dad only gives, if one is a male, obviously, the dad just gives the Y thingy. So I think maybe there's a point there, although the environment also does play a role in one, reaching the potential in terms of, the intellectual capacity. But anyway, so I'm not going to focus on the junior because there's so much to talk about, about your work life. But in Fundisweni, we grew up knowing that Fundisweni is one of those schools that had continued to produce top quality, matriculants, and you're one of those matriculants. What would you say about your time in Fundisweni?
Mfundisweni, there were two things about Mfundisweni Fundile. The first one is that sadly, my medical doctor ambition zachabalala Mfundisweni, because we ended up, I started Form 4 in Disuga Bantingville. Form 4, by the time we got to June, we still didn't have a maths teacher. And when we got home, for June holiday, and we didn't have a maths teacher, my father, who was a school principal, took the decision like that. Okay, when you go back, if I call a maths teacher, you are moving from that stream, because obviously it's not. And I mean, those days, as you know, what your father said, especially if they were a teacher, that it was going to be like that. So I ended up moving to geography stream because of not having a maths teacher. And as they say, the rest is history, because obviously the universe had different hands than the ones that I had. So that was the one thing. The second thing about Mfundisweni, it was that idea. Funny enough, it kind of took me back eKrumuku, which was, it doesn't really, and I will say this statement, and I know that people will interpret it in whatever way they want, but I will say it anyway. It doesn't matter what you come from, is where you end that matters. Because in Mfundisweni, it was almost like the schools and there was very good quality education, but the facilities were like almost non-existent. Very bad facilities, boarding school, the classes and everything, but the teachers inside were still committed to the work of teaching the Black child, which was the same Apundan Kulele Kona Okrumuku from a primary school, unlike you guys who had a good time at St. John's with proper facilities. And so for me, those were the two things that really that stand out for me when I think about Mfundisweni. Yeah.
So you wrote, or you are about to write your matric exams, and you have to start thinking about post-matric what kind of career you want to follow. So as you were about to write to standard 10, Form 5 was the Loma class.
Yes.
Form 5. So obviously medicine was not going to happen. So you then had to look at other choices. I remember those days, science stream and go to a general, where you have geography and history and stuff like that. So as you were approaching your matric exams, what was the new idea about what you want to study to become?
No idea. I was very frustrated. As I was writing that in matric, I knew I was going to fourth year. So there was an excitement about going to fourth year, because if I'd done medicine, I was going to go to med school, and that was going to be Durban, and Durban is down the road from my home. It's an hour home. So the whole idea of having to go to Alice, Kwano College. So that was the excitement. As to whether that and don't know college, I will tell you now, I had no idea. All I knew, obviously now in terms of where I am, I'm going to be doing EBA. Now, Elaliniam, people understood EBA. Now, BA was a big thing, was a very big thing. Ayikho enye degree yaziwa ngaphasi. Lamntwana wakho wezi BA. By the way, if you say university was EBA, noma wenza ntoni was EBA. And so I went to fourth year when I Fundi with no idea, because I'd always been clear that I don't want to be a teacher. Because there were just so many teachers in my environment. I wanted to do something different for myself, which was not teaching. But so I just went to fourth year and I said, okay, let's see what's going to happen. And when we got there and we were registering, I knew, okay, geography ndayazi ndiyifundile ndipase kakuhle, English ndiyifundile ndizayipasa, so ndizawurejista ezo zombili. Ezezinye izinto andizazi, so almost following abanye abantu, when you register ntoni ntombi, sociology, okay, let me register. When we register ntoni, so in a sense we follow abantu abaninzi bachuishe kweli picala. This is all about career guidance that we didn't have. So you basically following abanye abantu benza ntoni. So really what the first year courses are registered, it other than English net course, the rest was following uba wena ntombi wenza ntoni.
And Utata, did he have no contribution in terms of guiding you as Utisha Lomku?
He didn't, actually. He didn't. Other than Uti Dizawenza, geography, there's English. He didn't. Remember, my teacher was YNZA PTC, so he didn't have a degree himself. He'd done whatever PH or whatever that was called. So I think for him, it was the same that there was nobody in our family, direct family, who had a degree. And so I didn't get that guidance. Okay, uzoenza le, kanfika effort. So I really just followed umhlambi akweli picala, except that at least these other two I knew. So I ended up majoring in English and geography, which are the things I'd always been clear about. In a sense, zazigcwalisa nje.
And by the way, in most of those universities, the longest list of graduates, graduations, are in the humanities.
Of course, BA, yes. Yes.
All right. Yes. So, any highlights though about the undergrad effort? When you were doing your BA.
I think
not necessarily academically, it could even be social or political. It's just any highlights.
Fourth year shaped
long history with a long history of politics and all of those things.
Fourth year shaped me in many, many ways. I mean, it was obvious. I did my first year in 1976. Yes. So there was no way you were not going to be impacted. There was no way you were not going to be shaped. Not understanding politics. I'm not going to lie and say, oh, we came from this very active family. No, we didn't, except for my sister, who was a nurse in Durban, who would come home and talk about Black Power. Nakhona ekoneni singayazi ba intoni nale Black Power thetha ngayo System Beggar, who was esuka in Durban, King Edward. Yes. Otherwise, in issue of hardcore politics, I didn't know anything when I got to 14. So in terms of understanding very clearly politics, that's something that I got from Forte. So that was for me the biggest highlight about Forte. The second thing, which was a big highlight that I learned from Forte, is that thing of being able to balance having working hard and playing very hard. That you can actually do both. That in the end, it is about knowing, okay, now we stop, no partying, because siyabhala ngomvulo, you know. Okanye we are hiking, siyahika susuke Alice kuthiwa kuneparty erez, siyahika siyaphaya party ngomvulo. Ngo-2 ufuneka umuntu abe eselab, geography lab, studio, you know. So as friends, you had to have those friends that you will be supporting each other. Nihambe party kuthiwa mhlobo awuhambi because wena uyabhala ngomvulo. Exactly. So that's where I learned this thing. It's about who you surround yourself with, because otherwise, ikhona nala genge eyayiba sepatini uwaya. But now I knew, if those grades don't show up at home, I'm in trouble.
Yes. Now, I want to latch on something that you just mentioned now. Hiking to Erez. Are you talking about Alan Taylor residence in Devon?
Alan Taylor, ayikho kaloku enye rest. Xa kuthiwa kuneparty eDurban, iparty kaloku inye eDurban. Ise-rest, ayikho kwenye indawo.
That's all. So all the way, this is about almost 800 kilometers away. Let's say about 700 kilometers away for a party, for Gwagwa.
No, those years, I think that for me, that's the big thing about when I look at the youth of today and the youth that we were. Yeah. Is that we actually, it would be ingenious of us to say we didn't have a good life and we didn't play hard. We did, but the big difference is that for some reason we were able to balance, and the big part of it for me, it was the families that we came from.
Yes.
So I knew indoba ekhaya akuzungeneka ncam iba eza grade ziphako 50 when my father knows what I'm capable of. Yeah. So I knew indoba andizuya kule part. Nase 40 andizuya kule disco. Ukuba ndile ediscweni, it means it's 1 hour, after then ndiyaphuma. Usindiswa Lingela, who's a friend of mine from PE, uzabe sithi Mbotsho uyabhala ngomvulo Mfondini. Masihambe siyabhala English ngomvulo. Miss Taylor usilindile. Sizawuya nje for an hour a Great Hall siphume. So I think for me that was the big thing. It's the balance. Balance.
Yes. All right, so you got your BA there. And remember, you did geography, English with the big subjects, and you majored in those.
Yes.
Yes. All right. So I see that then being a foundation to your next step, because then you went to Natal to now do a master's degree in regional and town planning. I think there's also a strategy there, though. As of interest, was yela erez wabafutshane ngoku.
No, so interest, so interest. Zizamba ezo interest. Politika apha wena ngoku. No, I mean, interestingly, into town planning, we came back as a saving grace because clearly the universe had been listening that I didn't want to be a teacher. Because by the time June, July, my option was to now do honors geography, and obviously then end up teaching. But it was the fact that Abantu Base University of Natal came to recruit students to do town planning. And they did all these aptitude tests. And I happened to be that student who got that bursary that they have. And that's how I ended up at University of Natal, to actually do something different from teaching, which was something that was unique, that was different. So that's how I ended up at University of Natal to do town planning. It was through just something I didn't know what town planning is, but I was just happy I was doing something other than teaching. So that's how I ended up to do that 2-year degree, which is both an honors and master's at University of Natal in 1979. And that's when a lot of other things happened.
Yeah. All right. And so is this now Devon or Maritzburg?
No, it's Devon. It's Devon.
It's Devon. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Howard College.
Howard College.
Okay, all right, all right. But then those days, Black people were not supposed to, to stay at the main campus because Kaloku E-Group Areas Act didn't want us in that part of the world. So we must disappear to Black areas after 5, come back again in the morning. So were you staying at Res as well, or you stayed with relatives somewhere around there?
No. I was staying at Res.
Okay.
I was staying at Res. Yeah, so we were staying at Res. We would hike Sikweleza bus in the morning, Seshe medical school, and then we would hike up to Howard College.
Yes.
From Ekoneni Mbilo, Ekoneni, you hiking up. Same in the afternoon, you are hiking down or you are running down Ulekala bus from Ilas bus, which was around 7:30, Uleka bus Osterville. So that was our daily life. Yeah.
But anyway, by the time I got to Natal, which was now in 1984, University of Natal, that bus now, it used to come from Alan Taylor, past medical school, all the way to Howard College, and it would start and then past medical school, and all of that. So you guys, I think at that time, they had, there was this sense that people were non-medical students at Alan Taylor were not, they were almost like, how would I put it? I don't want to put it in a bad way, but it was like medical students were like the first class citizens of some kind. And then anyone else who wasn't doing medicine, they didn't get the best deal, out of that situation. But at least they had tried to correct it by the time Sifika.
No, sascelele, basically, literally sascelele, because that residence was for medical students. And so there was a few, and remember that time, there were very few of us, abantu abamnyama, who were at Howard College. It was mainly Amandia at Howard College, but Tina, abantu abamnyama, there were very few, and all of us stayed at Res. Yeah, we stayed at Res, and then, as you say, we didn't have transport air straight to Howard College. So SAS hiker from a medical school to go up.
Yeah, all right. So there you were doing this master's program in town and regional planning. And I mean, this is early days. This is what, late 70s or early 80s?
79, I was there, 79 and 80. It was a 2-year program, 79 and 80. And
I mean, at that time, repression was still, at its height. In fact, it worsened towards the middle of the 80s, when there were a lot of riots and stuff. But you were able to finish your course, and you were the first Black female person to qualify as a town and regional planner. What did that mean to you, Sis Lulu?
I actually, the fact that I was the first didn't actually mean anything. I don't think, I think it's something I heard almost later on. It didn't even register that was the case.
Yeah.
At the time. But I think that at the time there were the many of us who were at Howard College were doing those degrees that were not offered in Black universities. Yes. So there were people who were doing engineering, or Pinky Kaba, who's Pinky Moholo now. Yes. And there are a lot of other students who were very, very few who were doing things that were not offered. So in a sense, we're pioneers, as Black pioneers, professionals that is, in those years. And I know that we didn't intentionally seek to be pioneers or seek to be the first. We just happened to be doing what we're doing for a whole host of reasons. Yeah. And so that's what it was for me. And a lot of us, interestingly, were also on Abantu were there. They were coming from the homelands, interestingly.
Yes.
And so you would, as I say, myself or Pinky or MZ and all of them coming from a Transkei who were there. And then when I finished, I had to go back and work at Transkei as a town planner. So I had to go back, in the local government, at Botterstown. So when I finished 1981, then I had to walk into a Botterstown.
Wow. Yeah. But then, when I look at you, the places that you've worked in, Then there is a firm, Rosemarine Creek and Partners,
Yeah.
and then a couple of years, I think 2 years, then at Department of Local Government. And this is where you were applying your knowledge and skills as a town and regional planner. But it didn't take you long before you were itching to do something different. But just tell us a little bit about that time.
I worked there, Fundi, I think 1981 to 1984, I think. And I mean, I always say this to people in terms of my career. In most instances, I didn't actually plan most of these things. Yeah. In a sense, the universe pushed me for different reasons, because the reason why I left Mthatha was because our Bagamtembu started being unhappy with me, because the person who I happened to be close to had gotten into trouble with the powers that be, and then he had to leave the country. And so I ended up having to answer questions that had very little to do with me, had a lot to do with somebody who now was not here. I had to answer that. So I ended up spending a couple of months at a police station to answer these questions. So when I came out of that detention, I just worked out, this is not going to work. And so that's how I left Mthatha, to then go and work at the University of Natal. I was running away from Abantu Bagamtembu.
That's how people who were hectically political, political activists,
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you went back and you became a lecturer at University of Natal, just a little bit about that. I mean, what was your highlight about being a lecturer back to your alma mater, and actually now being part of developing the next level of people who were following your footsteps?
Yeah. When I went back to University of Natal first, I went for an NGO for about 2 years or so. Then I left and I went abroad and I studied at LSE. It's when I came back from LSE that I then became a lecturer at the University of Natal, which was a very interesting experience, actually, because the same corridors that in a sense I walked as a student, I was now walking as a lecturer. And that's when I also just realized how academics, I don't know these days, but then they actually don't move. The people that they taught me were still there in the whole faculty. And it was a very strange kind of feeling for me, being the only Black lecturer here, but also having been the only Black student here at the time. So it was kind of very strange. But it was interesting for me also because I had a very, very interesting relationship with my students, particularly the Black students, because the Black students had decided, some of them started thinking they're going to take chances, because it was this thing of, hi, Lulu, begune meeting izolo yesterday, so izolo, so ngoku people are not submitting my assignments because I'm supposed to understand, because nambe nhlale res like babehlale res, and I would be saying, no, listen, we're not going to work this way. Because when you're in an environment like that, you've got to be there, particularly with Black students. The relationship is being watched by everybody. Yes. So you've got to be there. So my thing was, I'm going to support the Black students, like all students. Yeah. But I'm going to make my door is open. I'm going to support them. I'm going to push them. But the issue of excellence is there. There is no compromise on that. There is no compromise there. I want to have the best Black students that are going to come out of this environment. So this was something that was very important to me.
But just a little bit about this stint at LSE. What took you there, and what would have been your highlight, or what was your highlight there?
Interestingly, at LSE, I was pushed by abanye abantu who are bigger than our Bagamtembu. Again, I was being asked to answer questions that were bigger than me. And then secondly, the person that I had a relationship with, as I said, he had gone into exile
already.
And the agreement was that I wasn't going to go to exile. I was going to leave officially to go actually and study, so that we could come in a sense, continue with what we had started at university, but I would be able to come back home. So that's how I ended up at LSE. And the late Ubud Justice Ubud Langa is the one who facilitated the scholarship for me. Bless his soul. He facilitated the scholarship for me to go and study at LSE. So I was on a Mandela scholarship at LSE doing my master's there. And then I was able to travel from there to meet my better half in the other parts of the world.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. All right. So, and you got your degree, cum laude, you know? Did you at LSE?
Yes, I did. It was actually a very interesting one for me because LSE changed the course of my professional career in a way that was, in a sense, unrecognizable for me. Because I had come out of the University of Natal with very low self-esteem academically because of that environment. And I'd forgotten that I had been told that I was intelligent. I'd forgotten that. But when I got to LSE in that environment, which is international, people coming from all over the world, you are being pushed for the person that you are. And nobody cares, you black, you white, whatever, you are here now. And that kind of dug something that had kind of gone under in my mind, that I could actually, I'm more than what I had come to realize. And so that's how I got to actually just be my best. At LSE, I became my best. I have to, and I always say that LSE pushed me, and I was able to perform at my very level best. And from that time at LSE, got a distinction, won the Titmas Award, which is for the best student in that whole program. I came out of there knowing that I can actually do anything. I'm up to anything that is in front of me. I can do anything.
So coming back then and becoming a lecturer in Natal, when you now have been exposed to a different, that actually showed your true potential. Now you're coming back to this environment, still under apartheid and a lot of those kind of things. So wasn't it a bit of a challenge for you? And again, town planning, and please correct me if I'm wrong, town and regional planning, isn't it largely male-dominated environment?
It is very male-dominated, still is. The thing about it, Fundile, when I came back and I was a lecturer at the University of Natal, I had kind of learned other things and I started to see the program for what it was and some of the things that I thought were missing. I mean, the one module that, for example, I designed there was research methodology, because I had seen, coming from my own experience as a student, trying to do a dissertation and you don't know where to start. And so I designed a program on methodology. But the second thing that I focus on, and everybody who was my student will tell you this, it's the ability to write. Because that's what I learned at LSE, and was how writing, academic writing and writing in general is important, how to express yourself on paper. And when I came back and I was giving students essays and I failed students, and the students took me to the head of department because I had failed them. And my head of department called me. I said, no, the quality of writing is not up to scratch. Part of our responsibility is to teach the students how to write. So these were some of the things that became very, very important to me, because I saw how that ability to write kind of built confidence in me on how to express my mind and how to express what I'm thinking. And so those were some of the things that became important to me. And as I say, all my students will tell you that, and people that have worked with me will tell you how the issue of writing is very important to me.
All right. So we'll just press a pause for our interview. I just want to read, a colleague of mine is going to read some comments that are coming through from Facebook and YouTube. Just comments about, let me not say anything. Namisa, please read those comments, or if there are any questions, you can read those as well.
All right. Good afternoon, doctors. We have a couple of comments. The first one is from Wandimiza, who wrote thumbs up with a star there. And then the second comment is from Lebo Bereng, who says, looking forward to this amazing and awesome session with a praise hand emoji. And the third comment is from Minti Dolo, who says, good afternoon. The other comment, Ditapelo, says, keep up the good work with heart emojis there. And then we have Twai Damkabai with in love emojis. And Minti Dolo again says, very nice upbringing. And we have Pelogazi Nyati Mbombo, who says, Pilile Mduli, Asanda Mbombo, Bulelwa Gwagwa, and MJ Mbombo, Bolega, Apiwe Gwagwa, your sis or aunt is on. And then another one from Nobenguni Tabati says, Mamngane, beautiful personality. Minti Dolo says again, Indala Lento, ye party yo. And then Minti again says, Umhlelondo, Bawa Usenza, if first day from 1976, then at 2 years of age. And then Peloga Zinyatambombo says again, the first year when I was not even born with crying emojis there, Umhlelondo. And Steve Matama says, impressive, with hearts and praise emojis also. Umpilo Line says, what a phenomenal all-round woman. We are proud of you, Sis Lulu. The best role model enrolled child can look up to you. Bravo. And then the last one is from Bantwini Matiga, who says, enjoying these informative sessions, especially with a focus to women. So that's the last one we have. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Nabisa. All right, so there's quite a number of people who are enjoying this conversation. We now need to move a little bit faster and focus now on your work life, because I think there's a lot that we can learn from your journey. This is now after you came out of Natal. At what point did you go and do your PhD at UCL?
I registered for straight after my master's at LSE. I registered for my PhD and I started, and then Mandela got released, and we came back, as it were, and so I came back, and I had come back to do my field work, and I never went back, and then I went and I taught at the university. Children came and everything. So my PhD is a very long story, where I started, I deregistered, I re-registered, I deregistered. So my PhD probably took me 7-8 years out of re-registering, deregistering, and all of that. And in the end, it was my husband who kind of said, okay, we've had enough of this. With you carrying something, today you are off it, tomorrow you are lamenting how you never finished. Can you just give us a break? Can you just take time, finish this thing, so that the rest of us can now have a break? Then I went to Sweden. I spent 3 months in Sweden and left him with his children, and spent 3 months in Sweden to actually write my PhD. But I was still registered with London. I just got a fellowship to go and sit and write for 3 months. So it wasn't, and I'm mentioning this because there are many things that we say we're not doing because we're doing this, because this. There are many things there are many ways of skinning a cat. My PhD wasn't 3 years. I did many things in between, from day one to the end when I actually graduated. I did many other things. And in the end, I finished my PhD. So it wasn't one of those 3 years. it was 7, 8 years or something like that.
So were you the first person in Gwagwa who had a PhD? Because your younger sister, not long ago, I think about a year or two ago, you were Fundi.
Fundile, I lead from the front. I lead from the front. So most definitely I was the first one. And my sister was 2 years younger than me, finished her PhD this year, earlier this year. And I'm super, super proud of her because of what she had to go through to actually finish that PhD. That PhD of hers, I value it a lot more than I value mine because I know what she had to go through to be where she is. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. All right, so you came back to South Africa, you know, and then you got involved in trying to create the new South Africa. So you were amongst the people to carve out South Africa into 9 provinces. How was that experience, you know, of being back home and getting involved in creating the future of this country that, you know, some had gone to exile to fight for?
What a privilege, what an honor. When I got called by the late Dr. Zola Skweyiya, my daughter was 10 days old, was actually 4 days old. And we were in Durban. My husband was working at King Edward and I was at the University of Natal. And Zola said, Comrade Lulu, how are you? I'm fine. And then he explained this thing. I said, oh, okay. I've just given birth. My daughter is 4 days old. Or are you sick? No, I'm not. Is child fine? No, the child is fine. Is there a problem? And I got completely confused. Basically, he was saying, if the child is healthy, you are healthy, so we need you. We will need somebody. Do you want me to speak to Comrade? And no, I don't. I don't want you to do that. I mean, I have to make that decision. Long and short, when my daughter was literally 10 days old, I flew to the World Trade Center with my daughter because Zola Skweyiya had said, we will do anything to make sure that you and your child are comfortable. If you want to travel with the child, we'll fly you with the child, we'll get you somebody to look after the child. And for 18 months, when we were working on that project of provincial boundaries, I was traveling everywhere with my daughter, who was a baby at the time. So doing those boundaries, it is one of those things that I look back and I say, I don't even know what I would say it feels like. And the experience of it is something that comes once in a lifetime, honestly and truly.
But at least we were getting some returns on investment in our team.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think for me, it was just something that was where you are applying your professional expertise.
Yeah. For national good.
For national good. And at the time, you could do that, and you could, as a professional, you had space, and you were given space. You could voice something, you could sit in front of politicians and say, no, it can't be that. And politicians could come and sit in front of you to come and present themselves and argue their case. And you listen to them. They aren't instructing you, they're arguing their case. And I think it was really, really a very, very fulfilling exercise for me. We traveled this country all over the show. When Terre Blanche stormed into World Trade Center, I was in that building with my baby. When they stormed in there. In Kokstad, we were, the Afrikaners there came in their tractors, surrounded the town hall where we were as a commission. I mean, there's stories and stories I could tell you about that commission, which was led by the late Bex Nomvete, who was the chair of the commission. A brilliant, brilliant team that we had. And the head of the secretariat was Dr. Renosi Mukate. Brilliant, brilliant commission. So, yeah.
And some people were not happy about the 9 provinces afterwards. They wanted a 10th province, that is the Eastern Cape. The Transkei part of the Eastern Cape wanted to be a province of their own. But anyway, you guys stuck to your guns.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, many stories, many compromises as well in the process. I mean, many compromises, because in the end, it was part of the political deal. So there were compromises in that, because we presented to the negotiating team, and then they had to now negotiate amongst themselves. But we put the technical work in front of them.
All right, so New South Africa, and then you got involved in government. I think you were with Public Works, and you came up with some transformational policies there. I'm not going to go through what you did in each department, but your time in government before you went to IDT, Independent Development Trust, where again, you changed it from being a grant organization to be a development finance kind of organization. Yeah, can you just tell us the highlights, what you learned out of that?
I think for me, Fundi, working in national government at the time, I think it was a privilege and an honor, because the main thing that we were driving there was changing policy and legislation, because I was there in the first five years or something like that. Yeah. And that was the main drive, and the beauty and the satisfaction about working at senior level at the time. Again, it's the same thing I'm saying about doing in the provincial boundaries. It's because we could sit around with senior politicians, and they respected us as executives, as bureaucrats, that we were senior, we were professionally trained, and we also had the same goal in mind of a better South Africa. And so nobody was here to undermine us. We could sit around and engage with the politicians. We would sit around with our minister, who was Jeff Kadebe at the time, and engage and agree and disagree. Min-Mac meetings, we would sit, we would disagree with the MECs, disagree with the minister as officials to say, we've done the work. It's not going to work that way. I remember one time, one MEC, I won't say from which province, said, Minister, Lulu can't come in provinces. She's not a politician to come and tell us that we can't do X, Y, Z. The minister says, but comrades, we agreed on this. And so she's putting her case in. So for me, that was the thing about working government at the time. You could really, when you sat at night and you didn't sleep and you were working on something, you knew that somebody was going to listen. And the reasoning and the technical, the economic, the technical reasons for what you're putting on the table, not political reasons of why things need to be done. So for me, that was something that really was a big learning curve. I was coming from being an academic, I was a DDG, big learning curve, big institution to manage, and learning to work with people that they don't agree with you, because the bureaucracy was not ours, but you learned how do you maneuver in an environment that is not yours, but you still have to use this machine to get the things done. So there was a lot of learning curve for me in that environment, I'm sure for a lot of us.
Yeah, so I mean, just on that point, Lulu, you're talking here, you are an expert, you are somebody who, with a lot of knowledge, breadth of knowledge on things that you are advising the government about, and luckily you were being listened to. Nowadays, we hear that at times, people, like you, are not always listened to. Some decisions are not always based on, sound, knowledge or expertise, but it's more of political considerations, and that becomes a challenge. So, if you now had to go back and do the work that you used to do then, and you find yourself in an environment where merit is not necessarily, the determinant of what goes and what doesn't go.
With all due respect, I think I would struggle. I would struggle because I think, as I say, I've worked in government, very difficult environment, but I didn't have to watch. The only thing I had to worry about was the bureaucracy that didn't belong to us. That's the only thing that I worried about, that am I not being set up here? That's the only thing I worried about. Everything else, when I agreed or I disagreed with somebody in Treasury, somebody in another department, I didn't have to worry about what's the agenda. When I sat in a meeting, I didn't have to worry about all of those things. And so I don't think I would actually cope.
Try.
I wouldn't be able to cope right now. I
All
think.
Right. So IDT, there is an organization that has been there for some time. It had a particular mandate, and you came in and you actually changed that mandate and did things very differently. What would be your highlight, your time there? The challenges that maybe you encountered as you were trying to transform that that institution from being the Indo-AMBC grants, to a development management agency.
The IDT was a very interesting entity, Fundile, because it had a huge capital base. When I got into the IDT, remember it had been set by the previous government to try to kind of to kind of manipulate Black people, especially in townships. That's why it was set. So it was set up for a very, very different purpose by the apartheid government, and R1 billion given to Judge Steyn to start the IDT. So when I got in there, the mandate was to actually transform the IDT to now take the same institution that had been set up to kind of manipulate the development agenda to actually now support the democratic government agenda, which was a very challenging mandate, but at the same time, very exciting mandate. And part of the things that I did, almost like my very first month, because the IDT was based in Cape Town. So I was like, if IDT is going to be supporting the development agenda, how is it going to do that from Cape Town? So the first decision, my very first board meeting, we are moving the IDT from Cape Town to Gauteng because that's where government is. Because we have to work with government here to support government. But because IDT had resources, it was difficult and a challenge to transform it from a different mandate. Again, I had a Minister Stella Stau, who was in charge of public works. I reported to her, who was a very straightforward person. I could sit down with her and say, Minister, it's not working. She would say, Utin Ntombazane, ufuna ntoni ntombazane, literally like that. And I would sit with her and say, this is not working, and fully support it. So when you have a principal that is not second guessing you, you use your everything that you have to actually get the job done. And we had full support of cabinet. We were given serious responsibilities to start the rural development program, to support the infrastructure program of government. And we were able to do that. And I had committed professionals, Edith Fries, and a whole range of other people that I was Olinyelo Mutsei, and a whole lot of people that I worked with at the time to actually just drive that mandate. So when you have a team, you are excited, you have resources, you have political backing that is not second guessing you, it becomes easier.
So you did a lot of good work there with your team, but you only stayed for 5 years. After 5 years, you decided, I'm out of here. Why?
I was burnt out. I was completely burnt out. I had spent 5 years in the National Department of Public Works, 5 years the RDT. I had very young children. I just finished my PhD, and I mean I had everything running at this level. And the body just said, okay, we're done. And interestingly, I actually, when I finished my PhD, within weeks, I was in hospital with an operation. My body just shut down. So I left the RDT because my body shut down. It had enough of abuse from me. So I took a year out to just go and listen to the body.
Okay, all right. And then, but somebody like you who had taken so much after her father could not sit home and do nothing for long. All right. So after that year, I'm sure it was even difficult to go, but anyway, you were back doing something again. When's the gun afterwards? Yeah.
I ended up in a place where I never, ever in my wildest dream thought I would ever do in my life, to be in business. Because I just came across Popo, Mulife, and Vali Musa. Oh, Comrade Lulu, where are you? Oh, I'm taking a break. Oh, okay. Just pop into the office for coffee. Oh, okay. I'd known them from government, Vali being a minister, Popo being the premier. And I popped into the office and they say the rest is history, because I'm still popping in and having coffee. Since the popping in of coffee in 2004, I'm still having coffee with Vali and Popo at Lureko Investment.
So, wenzani pha?
Obviously,
you're the CEO, but you know, like,
yeah, we are.
Yenzani la organization there.
That organization really is it's a big company, and we invest in areas of the economy that we think are supportive to the economy. And we decided that we were going to look for opportunities where we can still continue to make an impact, continue to make a contribution. But we also consciously, day one, decided we were going to do that in a way that would allow all of us to continue to make direct contribution in supporting government and development. Yes. And that is why all of us continue to be involved in all kinds of things. You talked about me being in the Planning Commission in the Eastern Cape. Yes. I was on the board of AXA at some point. I was, at the point of DBSA at some point. And that is all taking away Lureko's time to do all of those things. Yeah. But it's because it's something that we had consciously decided that we're going to do. So, so we spend our time at Lureko, but we spend time in terms of national service, and with all of us individually also spend time in philanthropy of one form or another. Vali continues to be very involved in climate change issues globally, not just in South Africa, globally. Yeah. As you know, Popo is PRASA, Transnet, and all kinds of other things. And I continue to do the things that I do, which you've talked about. So it's a very, very nice environment from that angle, is that we're doing business, and on the other side, we're also doing things that we like to do, which is continue to be activists of a different form.
Yes. So let's talk about your philanthropy work. You are doing so much, obviously biased towards young girls and women, but just tell us, just the giving part of you, just tell us, what does it, what does it fulfill, all of these things that you are doing for the young women that are actually your mentees?
Yeah, you kind of talked about that in the beginning. I think the work that I do is very much my father. My father, interestingly, is the brightest North Star for me. I'm my father's daughter. Actually, I should have been called Ndombi Guys because I am. And so this thing of giving is actually very, very important to me. It's seriously important to me. So I do work, as you said, through Magazi Trust, Apaims in Kulu, Nases Lalini, where I come from. And then a couple of years ago, I decided to kind of, in a very focused way, work with young Black women. It's something that I had been doing, mentoring young women, almost informally. But I decided to actually just formalize that. And it started off as me going lunch and engaging with my own daughter, who's now 28, and taking her for lunch to try and just talk woman to woman. Yeah. And then my nieces, and then friends, and it kind of grew. Yeah. And so into now what we call Traversing Liminality, which is now a fully fledged one-year program that supports young Black women. And I decided to focus on the age group of 21 to 30. And 21 to 30, because I know this for myself, that age group for a young woman, there are many firsts. It's the first time, it's your first job, it's your first time leaving home, It's your first serious relationship. It's your first serious heartbreak. It's your first child. And so there are many firsts, and they're all very confusing. And the way you handle and you maneuver those firsts has got a way of defining where you're going to land up in future. Whether you're going to take nonsense for relationships is going to come out of you, how you deal with your first heartbreak is going to determine whether you're going to take nonsense going forward. So there's a lot that goes on in those formative years of a woman. And so that's why I focus on that age group. And so it is not teaching them to be good workers or good professionals technically. It's actually trying to support their inner self so that they can support themselves ngaphakathi and be strong and deal with those limiting beliefs that we have as women and as Black women. Deal with those big voices that say you are not good enough, you are not worth it, and all of those voices. So that's what we do in this program. And it's anchored around coaches. So I've got women that have come in to support me, that I support these girls as coaches. For example, this year we've got 72 girls who are going through this program just this year. And it's not just from South Africa. I've got a young woman sitting in Kenya, one sitting in London, in Namibia, in Lesotho. So because the idea is also just to create a networking platform for young African women. So this is something that like excites me. If you were to wake up in the morning and say, what's the most important to you right now? I'll say traversing liminality. Because this is about just seeing, knowing how important it is to grow this Black woman who can show up not for others, show up for themselves first. And from that point of showing up for themselves first, then start to show up for others. Because as women, we want to show up for others before we show up for ourselves. And that's the trouble. And so that's the work that I do with young women.
So is it the first cohort or say,
No.
Yes. Okay.
Say cohort, last year I had 60 and they graduated. The previous year I had 42, they graduated. So we started in 2016, somewhere around. Okay. So already I have over 200 young women that have actually gone through the program. In fact, yesterday, we spent 4 hours, the girls themselves decided to put together and launch an alumni program for traversing liminality. So we had a webinar yesterday, which was anchored by 3 brilliant older women, Amanda Dambuza, Mary Vilagazu, COO was a first RAND, and Oluetu, who were just there supporting these women, raising issues, sharing their life journeys with these young women yesterday. So we just launched yesterday our alumni program, which really will be about how do we continue beyond the 1 year? How do we continue to support the women in different ways through traversing liminality?
So each time we graduate a group, and you look at these people that have just spent the 12 months with you, what goes through your mind, Stu?
Half the time I want to cry. I'm saying this, I genuinely want to do so. Because when I listen to these young women from the day they start and when they exit the program in February, because our program is March to February, and we have a valediction workshop in February, and I listen to them talking about their stories, just the different language that they speak, the way they show up for themselves, how they show up for themselves differently. And I keep engaging with them as they've been already left the program, and they'll be raising this, raising that. I just feel that I always knew that this country and this continent and this world can only move forward with women that are showing up for themselves first. I always knew that, and I know it. If women are given the space and they're supported to really do this, the world will be a different place and will be a better place.
For me, what you've just said now and thinking about the theme here to put the future is female. So actually, you know, I mean, that's aligned. Anyway, like in South Africa, you know, women are in the majority. You would expect that actual leadership at almost every level should be women-led, you know, but patriarchy in them. And sometimes some of the gatekeepers, the patriarchy, sometimes which becomes a problem.
True. No, it is very true. It is very true. But that, I mean, we can have a whole debate around it, a whole discussion on how other women find themselves being gatekeepers or patriarch. That in itself, they are playing out, in a sense, what their own childhood traumas. They are playing those out in a way. But yeah, I mean, I'm convinced about it. I'm not in saying that. I'm not saying that we should be supporting and supporting every human being. I think, but there's something about really bringing up women so that they can also show up for themselves.
Yes.
So that's what it's about. It's about also showing up for themselves. That's the work that I'm trying to do, is the also.
Yes, and I'm assuming that, you know, the concept of lifting as you rise, even amongst the, you know, the guys who are coming through your program, they also have a responsibility to pay it forward, you know, and open indlela for, you know, the other women who are coming up.
No, they are doing so. Even in the program, for example, this year, the cohort from last year are part of the support team for this year.
Okay.
So even within the program, they're doing that. And some of these young women are also doing work out there in communities. I know one of the girls is from Alex, Umpumi Mkwanazi. I know she's doing work out there. Kali Shabalala, I know she's doing some work to try and support young Black women from Elokshini who need clothing for those interviews. So I know Amanda Luhabe is doing work around literacy out there in KZN. So certainly these young women, these are enthusiastic, ambitious young women who just need that little. They're not needing a scholarship from anybody, because some of them are accountants already at 21. They are doctors, they are writers, they are those things. They just need that little bit of igxalaba nje lokuxhasela, and they're gonna be big things out there.
And how does one get into this program then? If let's say, you know, there's a mom there who's listening to this interview and they would like their daughter to actually apply, you know, to be part of this group. And I'm seeing the numbers. It was 40 something, it was 60 something. Now it's in the 70s. So how does one, if there's a parent out there or a young person listening to you and wants to be part of this program, you know, how does one
apply?
Yeah,
we put out call for applications. We're going to be putting out call for applications towards the end of October.
Yeah.
Because as I said, the program starts on the first weekend of March. So we're going to put out a call for applications. So people must look out for that. And they must also just keep checking our website, which is www.traversingliminality.com. So that's our website, and we will be putting out the call for applications out there. But I can't also not use this opportunity, Dogotele. You know, I've been harassing you.
That was my
okay,
point. I want to bring it out now.
Okay.
So, now that I understand this program now, because that's what I wanted. I couldn't give you an answer because I still wanted to understand the program so that I can see how does one fit in, you know, in terms of the program. Now I see it's about developing the whole of these, you know, people who are in the program, you know, mentally, socially, you know, academically, whatever, you know, just developing people as a whole. getting them to find themselves and find exactly why, why are they here?
Why are they here?
Yes, why are they here?
Yes.
So now I can see, because obviously the question that I had was, okay, I have this organization, that I'm leading, that is into, psychosocial interventions or broadly health interventions, physical, emotional, mental, social, and whatever. We've got social workers, we've got psychologists, we've got occupational therapists, we've got doctors, all of these people that I work with. And I was trying to see, how can one then be able to add value to what you are doing? Now I have an idea. But anyway, we can talk about it, I'll comment.
Yeah.
Again, your name, it's about unity, it's about collaboration.
Yes.
So, collaboration is the thing now about, especially during these COVID times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Importance of collaboration.
Yeah, I think that, as I said earlier on, in terms of these young people, everything that's technical, that they learn at school, that they learn in the graduate programs of the corporates that they get into. But what they don't get out there, it's this relationship with self, developing that self-confidence, those kinds of issues. And what I've come to learn is that a lot of these young women deal with are shouldering a lot of trauma of different types. And so at the moment, I have 9 coaches. These are trained executive coaches, life coaches, who are supporting the program. So we've got 72 girls, we've got 9 coaches. So each coach deals with about 8 or so girls that support them throughout the year, over and above the overall program that we have. But the one thing that has come up very clearly is coming out, I don't know whether it's COVID has kind of surfaced this even more, is the need for clinical psychologists to support the girls. So if you were to ask me, what is the single most important thing that we need right now? I'd like to have a panel of clinical psychologists who would lift their hands and say, Lulu, I have 5 hours a year that I could contribute to the program. 5 hours I could contribute to the program. Or I've got 10 hours I can contribute to the program. I've got 1 hour to contribute to the program, because then each time we've got these girls that are really showing these serious trauma issues that go beyond what a coach can do, not beyond, outside the scope of personal coaching. There's a big space for clinical psychologists. There's a clinical psychologist that I'm dealing with in Namibia, Dr. Mara Mberira, who's been supporting us. And I had a long chat with her yesterday. And she was raising a very interesting point, which says coaching is very important, because what it does, it opens the door for therapy. Because as Black people, we see stigma with therapy and mental health issues. But once you've been through a coach, you start to understand what mental health is and why it is important to deal with your mental health and your emotional being. And then out of that, people feel a lot more courageous to actually go into therapy. And so that's why I'm seeing a lot more of these girls saying, Dr. G, therapy, and where can I find a psychologist? I can't afford one. And so that's why I'm saying, clinical psychologists out there, please raise your hand, and Dr. Fundi is going to vet you to make sure that you're for real.
Well, I already have a panel across the country of vetted affiliates. So I think what we need to talk about is, the different, like where in South Africa, so that we can look at the, because in the work that we do, which is employee assistance programs, which are psychosocial programs in the workplace, we use a lot of social workers within a call center environment. Our business has to run a 24/7, 365 call center supporting various employers, private sector and public sector. Now, some of the people who are picked up there then are referred for face-to-face with independent psychologists throughout the country. You know, different languages, different cultures, different religions. So we then find out what's your preference, you know, as an employee of Coca-Cola, for example. You know, what kind of a psychologist you want, you know, because again, so the network is there of our affiliates, people we've worked with for years. It's now about understanding then your need in terms of the numbers. I can already think of about 5 already, especially now that there is virtual, you know, technology. We have migrated a lot towards virtual stuff. So, and these are like top quality people. So consider it done.
Okay. You see now, collaboration, nobody saw at work.
Exactly. Yeah, consider it done. No, let's pick up during the week on how to make it happen. But you know, we've got those resources within the company and our affiliates outside of the company who we've worked with for long. So it shouldn't really be a problem to assist you guys. It might just be a little bit of my social responsibility to fund a number of hours, you know, by those people. So that's my little contribution for all the bad things that this gender of mine is doing out there. All right, as we wrap up this Lulu, young people or young up-and-coming professionals out there who are finding it difficult, you know, to be themselves, who are finding it difficult, you know, to make an impact in organizations, who also are very switched on in terms of the issues out there, GBV, femicide, and all of that. You know, females generally are very scared nowadays in South Africa, even to venture out to Gwagwa, because you are harassed from the time, you know, when you are going through the aisles, you are harassed, and there's this, there's that. So it's really a lot that females have to deal with. But what words of encouragement, you know, just reflecting now on all the wisdom that you have, you know, acquired over the years, what words of encouragement do you have towards women of South Africa?
Fundile, I mean, I think I want to start off by saying exactly what your theme is. The future is female. There is no question about it. There honestly is no question about it. If you look at leadership, where we are with leadership, the things that when I grew up were shunned upon as part of leadership, we now even have something called emotional intelligence. I mean, when I was 20, that word really, I'm sure it was there, but it was something that you wouldn't talk about as intelligence. So all these things that we're seen as kind of were called soft skills. These are the real skills that leadership, these are the real things. These are the real things that are sought out, that are being sought after out there in the world when people are recruiting, they're looking for top-notch leaders. And these are the things to a large extent that tend to come almost naturally for women. And so all you need to do is to be yourself. I think that's the thing that we're trying to do with young women. Be yourself. Don't try to be anything else. I mean, I think it was Mary Vilagazi yesterday when she was talking to our girls. She says, you know, being somebody, trying to be somebody else is so hard. It is so hard. Can you imagine just waking up in the morning, just being yourself? It's the easiest thing that you can be, is to be yourself. So that's what I'm really saying to women out there and to young women. Just be yourself and be confident to bring your voice to the table as you are. Because a lot of the things that we're scared to put around the boardroom table are the real issues. These are the real issues that need to be put on that table. So be yourself.
But then the assumption is that people know who they are. To be yourself, you must know who you are. So then there's a step before that. The knowing.
That is why knowing yourself and self-awareness is so important. That's the work that we are doing right now in Traversing Liminality, is to raise that level of self-awareness and really learning to be in relationship with yourself.
Yes.
Because it's not possible to be in relationship with others when you are not in relationship with yourself. And so I think this inner work on working on yourself as a person and self-awareness is something that's very important. The second thing for me that is very important, Fundile, is this thing of integrity. I think that I don't think we are emphasizing enough the importance of integrity. Because integrity is that thing that it doesn't matter where you are, and being consistent about who you are. It doesn't matter where you are. People just know, I get Lulu, Soza. Even if people say something, people say, Ufundile Soza enzelon. So I'm not even going to listen to that, because people, they know who you are. And you are consistent in that as well. Because therein lie opportunities. I mean, I sit on a number of boards. There's very few boards where they actually advertise for a job of being a board member. It is about somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody. People know you. And in a lot of instances, it's not just about what they know you can do technically. It's about the integrity and the wholeness that you're going to be able to bring to that table. So when opportunities lie, people mustn't be unsure about whether they can trust you with this responsibility. People must just know, no, that week I can trust Fundile with that. Can give him that responsibility because of his integrity, because this is a person who works hard, this is a person of excellence, this is a person who's consistent. Those four bring opportunities in front of you. It's that excellence, it's that consistency, it's that integrity, is that working hard. You can't exchange those four with anything, and you can't also manipulate yourself into being that when you are not. So those are the things that I would really put forward. But support yourself and surround yourself with support. Because there's the other thing about women. I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm an executive, I'm a business person, I'm a daughter. I mean, I cannot be able to do all of these things at the same time. I can't now cook here at home, think I can cook here at home all the time. I can't. It's not possible, because some days I have a board pack to go through. And so, but I must make sure that I surround myself with support. I don't feel embarrassed to say, I have got 2 people working in my house. It is because I've got these other responsibilities. So surround yourself. Support system is also very important. And as women, we struggle to build a support system around ourselves. So that's the other thing that I will emphasize.
Beautiful, beautiful. Now, because Mambalwa, there's few people out there who meet this criteria, consistent in this and that and that and that, then you end up having few faces who are approached to be in these boards, and people all of a sudden are sitting in 13, 14 boards. And the question then that comes up is, what value are they bringing? Do they, I mean, there's serious responsibilities, especially now with the King 4, of being in a board. You could be found personally liable for certain things that happen in the companies. Yet people will only see the board pack on the morning or just before, or sometimes pick it up at the receptionist of the company that they are a board, so the question of also knowing your limits. The
word there for me, Fundi, respect yourself. Respect yourself. Because if you respect yourself, you are not going to there's now a new word, it's called overboarded. Overboard. And they say, oh, so-and-so is overboard. I mean, this is new. This is a new word. I never heard it. It's basically people who are in too many boards. And people talk about you that you actually, because meeting now, you are asking questions on things that are on page 1 of the CEO report. Because ayifundanga loo nto. That's why I'm saying, then you don't respect yourself. When that CEO says, Dr. Gwagwa, actually, I raised this on page 3. I mean, honestly, now you are embarrassed. So respect yourself. So this thing of learn to say no, learn to say no to things. To know how much you can actually deal with consistently and competently and apply yourself on your plate. So this thing of what can I take on my plate and what is it that, remember I talk about people feeling comfortable that they can trust you with something. So people have entrusted you with this responsibility. Respect yourself. That's the word I would use.
Beautiful, beautiful. And, you know, if you look in the last 5 years, there's been so many failures of ethical leadership in organizations. So I just wanted to talk a little bit around ethics and leadership, you know, because you could be legally compliant, but ethically found to be, you know, on the other side, because the standards are higher for ethics. So, Jay, you know, and so in the last few years, we've seen big organizations having problems around issues of ethics and leadership. And obviously, I'm asking now in the context of women.
Mna Fundile, I simplify issue of ethics. They simplify and I go back and I said to you, my father is the brightest star, North Star for me. My father used to say, and actually in high school, if wenza into kandithi gqi ubaleke, then you must know you shouldn't have started that. And that was all about your conscience, because in your ethics, we can teach people we are Gibbs on a course here ethics. I don't even know why we actually go to courses of ethics, honestly and truly, because we know as a human being, you actually know when something is not right. The other day, last week, we were talking in one of the entities that I'm involved in about conflict of interest. And I was saying, into a conflict of interest, it is not just about saying, okay, Lureko is invested in South Point and whatever, and therefore I'm conflicted there. I know the other areas where I've got influence, directly or indirectly, that when you looked at my CV, you would not see those. But I know that I'm conflicted. Because I know my husband works at Discovery. I know the other things that he does that other people might not know. So when it's all said and done, into ethics,
That's all.
Having moved from my father saying, if wenza into yabaleka, my new ethical standard is, if this thing is headlines in the Sunday Times, would my children be embarrassed? That's my new standard. If my children will be embarrassed, if something is the headlines in Sunday Times, I know that thing means I shouldn't do it.
Yes, beautiful.
So I really have an issue. I mean, of course, we will teach ethics until we blue in the face, but in the final instance, we all know what it is, simply because we are human beings. We know what is right and wrong.
Yes. Okay, just a few more comments, and then last point from you. How would you characterize your leadership style? But you will answer, you know, with everything you've gone through all these years and refined, what's your recipe for success as a leader? How would you characterize your leadership style? But let me ask Nwabisa to read these few comments, and then that will be the last question from me.
All right, Doc, the first comment we have is from Bantu Nimatiga, who says, once more, thank you, Dr. Nyati, for bringing us this richness of our heritage. Another Mbokoto Yokwenene. And another comment from Pelokazi Nyati Mbombo. She says, I hear you clearly when it comes to back then, professionalism versus politics. And Zirekawa says, yep, we are not coping, just surviving under these circumstances, with heart emojis and love emojis there. And then We have a comment from Mandla Hadebe, who says, from Umzimkulu to nations. These are examples we follow as we navigate through some enchanted territories, as we strive to better the nation one brick at a time. Thank you, Sis Lulu. And a comment from Veronica Rampachane, who says, always on point, Dr. Lulu. I will forever be inspired by your knowledge and the way you transfer it to other people. I am your product and you are still fire. I think there's a fire emoji there and also praise hands. And Kwaitam Kabai says, wow, this is inspiring, with the heart emoji there as well. And another comment from Normali Sambembe, who says, thank you, Sis Lulu. And a comment again from Veronique with the excellent sign emoji there. And Kifilo says, the seeds you have planted are really bearing fruit out there. Thanks, Lulu. Another comment from John, who says, good programs, Doc. And Petiwe Malulu says, Mlambo, you're extremely energetic and impactful at a number of levels, family, society, etc. Luckily, you have the wisdom to identify societal needs that you are passionate about. What is your support structure? How do you show up for yourself? So last two comments from Undutuzelo Nikiwe, which is just praise hands emojis, and Kaida again says, respect yourself. Wow, that's a mouthful, with a praise hands emojis as well. Thank you, that's all we have for now.
Thank you very much, Nwabisa. Sis Lulu, people are inspired. Others are giving feedback that indeed the seeds you are planting are already making a difference out there and are continuing to make a difference out there. Yeah, I left you with some questions there.
Leadership style. I actually don't even know that I have a leadership style.
I don't know broadly, Jay, about it. You know, about my style is that I create fear amongst people, and then people will do what I say. That's one style, you know. Yeah.
The interesting thing is that I do think that leadership also evolves. Yes. When I think about my earlier self as a leader, when I wasn't comfortable in my skin, I was actually, it was all about results. Precisely because I needed to make sure that I succeed. And therefore I was really driving the team like to hell and back, because I wanted to make sure I succeed, we deliver the results. What I've come to realize now as I mature, as they say, mature like a good old wine, not that I know anything about wines because I don't drink wine, but they tell me those who drink wine, is that I have matured a lot. I've come to understand that it is about the whole person.
Yes.
It is about providing support to others.
Yes.
Because when people feel supported, they are able to actually bring their best around the table. So that is something that I've come to really appreciate now, is how to support others to be the best that they can be. But me standing there and holding the vision very strongly, making sure that the vision is very clear about where we're going, and supporting others to actually also make sure that to actually rally around that vision, so that the vision is not mine. We also share in the vision. So whatever is delivered in the end, they feel they have made a contribution towards that vision.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Okay, so at some point you're gonna need to retire, if there's anything called retire, Gwagwa. But what kind of legacy would you want to be remembered, Ngayo?
I think there's.
When you've decided I've done enough for humanity, go make your pumla, the grandchildren.
I'm not ready to be a grandmother, but so that's another point. I call myself semi-retired right now already. So I am semi-retired already. And so in terms of legacy, I think for me, it's about family, that I played my role in the family, in keeping the family together, staying true to my name, Nobambiswano. So that's a very big one for me. It's staying true to my name, Unobambiswano. And the second one is that I did the best that I could and the best that I knew how to make a contribution in society. Yes. And for me, those are the two things. Is Unobambiswano in my family. When I say family, I mean Gwagwa. Now Kwanzaluba upon the corner is that person. And then secondly, to have done the best that I could in society.
Ndiyayithanda nale ndawo le yasebukhweni eqala.
Ewe manzi lidala.
Interview was about you, so andifulanga ungena kwenye, I didn't want to get into other parts.
Yes.
Focus on you. You are you are making things happen. In fact, what I'm seeing and what is that that thing of umama was sacrificing so much for ubakunyukutata no when my kid let me also must shine a song. Exactly. Sis Lulu, thank you very much, man, for giving me this almost 2 hours of your time just to talk about you and inspire abantu, get journey yako, professional, journey yako, and also your background and how you see life. There's a lot of wisdom, there's a lot of takeout points for anyone who wants to learn. So I just want to thank you. Also thank the family, because Sunday afternoon is a family time. So I want to thank them as well for allowing you to respond positively to this request. And it was nice to also see one of the comments coming from Mzimkulu line, who Deputy Public Protector. Inspiration and keep shining. There's many people who are waiting to buy a family now, So, but thank you very much. And also for everyone who joined in and listened to my conversation with Sis Lulu, Sis Nobambiswano. Thank you very much. And as
Nomonde.
Oh, okay. Nomonde and humility. Humility. But anyway, your other Kosa name. But anyway, thank you very much, Sis Lulu. Nolulamo. Yes, yeah. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity, Minawa. Thank you very much.
Because we'll pick up during the week on the other matter.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Minawa, and thank you to your followers. Thank you. Cheers.
Thanks.